Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Murphy Administration webinar about transitions for youth with intellectual or developmental disabilities. My name is Paul Arrington, and I am New Jersey's Ombudsman for individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities and their families. Today's program is the product of many conversations in recent years, conversations with families, conversations with advocates and providers, and conversations among ourselves within the administration. In fact, the topic of transitions has often been the focus of the discussions in our interagency working group on disability issues, a working group that meets regularly to address and work through topics of concern to the individuals and families we serve. Simply stated, we recognize the importance of transitions to young people and their families, the challenges as well as the opportunities. We know that raising a child with disabilities can be especially challenging, and that the decisions that need to be made can be especially complex and especially consequential. And as people who serve in the administration in various departments and offices throughout state government, we also know that there are resources available to our young folks and their families, important resources that exist but are not always known. And so through today's webinar, we are bringing much of it together in one place to make it more accessible to you and more meaningful for you. And after this presentation, we will make it all available to you and others by housing the video and PowerPoint presentations on our Ombudsman's office website. Granted, this won't be an exhaustive discussion of all of the issues that you or your loved ones must consider when making transitions. As you know, the issues and decisions to be made are many and varied. But today's webinar will provide you with a good, thorough overview of some of the key resources and programs available, and some of the key government offices and officials ready to help you every step of the way. Our office was chosen to facilitate today's conversation because we are unique in that we work with individuals of all ages in all stages of development on practically all issues imaginable. We work with children, we work with adults, and very importantly, we work closely with their families. And today's date was chosen because we, as an administration, wanted to recognize the U.S. Supreme Court's Olmstead decision in a meaningful way, a landmark decision that celebrated its 25th anniversary last Saturday on June 22nd. And it's a landmark decision that underscored the rights of people with disabilities to live full, safe lives in the communities of their choice. With us today, we have representatives of the offices that play key roles at key stages of an individual's life. The New Jersey Department of Health's Office of Early Intervention, the New Jersey Department of Education's Office of Special Education, the New Jersey Department of Children and Families Children's System of Care, the New Jersey Department of Human Services Division of Developmental Disabilities, and the New Jersey Department of Labor and Workforce Development's Division of Vocational and Rehabilitation Services. But before we get to those presentations, I am pleased to introduce a friend, a colleague, and a leader known throughout the disability community here in New Jersey, as well as nationwide. As the founding executive director of the Boggs Center on Developmental Disability, New Jersey's University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities, Deborah Spitalnik is the right person to get our conversation going today. Deborah and her team work daily with individuals and families to help them meet important milestones with the right information and the right resources. And so we are pleased that she is with us today to present some opening remarks. So Deborah, welcome and thank you for joining us for this very important conversation.
Oh, Paul, thank you so much. Thank you for your role in organizing this. And my thanks to the Governor Murphy and the governor's office for bringing us all together. I appreciate the opportunity to be with all of you today, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Supreme Court decision in Olmstead and confronting and wrestling with the challenges that so many emerging adults and their families are facing in making the transition from school to adult life. I know that many teens and young adults are concerned what will happen after school ends, or if school has ended, you may be missing your friends, your teachers, and the things you enjoyed doing. Many families, and I know many are with us today, are deeply worried and anxious about what happens when the entitlement to education ends, the feeling people describe as falling off a cliff into a crater. How will life be for my child and for my family? I have come to realize that the transition to adult life looms so large in the life of families that it can feel the same and as powerful it was when families earlier in life, were struggling to find out about their child's needs, the time of identification and diagnosis, a poignant time of fear and uncertainty that launches us into the unknown. For me and my colleagues here today across state government and the Boggs Center, this call today calls forth the same degree of urgency and responsibility to embrace families and young adults, embracing them not only with information, but to truly walk alongside and provide the support that meets people where they are in their journeys. To do this with tenderness and kindness in a language that people speak and information that they can understand. So why do we mark and celebrate Olmsted as we struggle to have a path to an adult life of connection, belonging, and meaningful contribution through work and learning and opportunity? Olmsted, based on the Americans with Disabilities Act, gives us the right to live in the community, to not be isolated or segregated. In the Olmsted Supreme Court decision in 1999, the late Justice Ruth Ginsburg, writing for the majority, wrote that unjustified isolation is segregation and is a form of discrimination and is a violation of the civil rights of people with disabilities. Well, we usually think of Olmsted in terms of where people live. The state of Oregon, in the court case of Lane and the consent decree, applied Olmsted to work and education. In the late 1970s, Madeline Will, a parent and deputy secretary for Education and Rehabilitation Services in the U.S. Department of Education, added planning for transition and providing those educational experiences that prepare young people for adult life to be part of the right to education and the IEP. Her vision was that through special education, you would begin to create the fabric of your adult life, learning, occupation, living skills. And then when graduation and the end of the special education entitlement came, that you, your teachers, and your family had helped you get established in a life that would say the same, but who paid for those supports and services would change, but you yourself and your family could find comfort and growth in the stability of that experience. That was the ideal, the right to be established and going forward. But that's not how this has turned out yet to date. In Olmsted and in IDEA and the requirements for transition planning and programming, we have rights. The rights are the ideal, but the gap between the ideal and what is real for so many people is why we're together today. Rights are essential, but rights without support and the clear path to realize life can feel hollow at the times in our lives that we most need the fullness of support and services and an easier path to get our needs met. Since transition became part of IDA and a right, there have been so many important changes in our ability to support people with disabilities, their families, and allies. We have learned how to teach and provide a broad array of behavioral interventions. We have devices that we can hold in the palm of our hand that can enable people who don't use their voices to communicate or to be prompted as they go about their daily life. We are learning that we can make a college experience for people with disabilities, something we could never have imagined in the 1970s when Tom Bellamy and Mark Gold taught that people with ID could work. And we can now see that in the flowering of supported employment and customized integration way. We also have federal policy that brings rehabilitation funds through the Workforce Investment Opportunity Act into schools to address transition, and you'll hear about that in a little bit. We have more knowledge and more options, but we also have more complexity that so many of us can feel overwhelmed by information without the tools and support to make that have meaning and a path forward. As we turn to the resources and allies that are together here today on this webinar, some thoughts about how that might guide us. The responsibility of all of us who are in helping roles. How do we collaborate and concertedly braid and blend that which our part of government or provider agencies provide? In our information about what we do, because we can do it, can we integrate and align that information and the messages and direction we provide in ways that work for the young adult and their families' decision-making? Can we collaborate and be willing to have that which the person wants lead the conversation with opportunities, because that's what wanted and needed, and not just because our roles dictate? I'm very compelled and excited by the new 5-year grant, Collaborations in Transition New Jersey, awarded to the New Jersey Department of Education from the Federal Rehabilitation Services, and the collaborations that I think that will forge at the local level, the places where we all our lives play out. Our responsibility to collaborate and coordinate what the person and family want, that's the measure of our success. Can we support families of young children and youth of all ages to have the support and space to dream and envision the future? Can we use Charting the Life course, and can we organize services to support those visions, not asking people to fit their hopes for their life into the way we provide service? Let us take a life course approach to transition, keeping the forefront of our thinking and action that transition is a developmental process, not just a particular time or note in an IEP. While we want focal points and accountability for transition, can we renew our determination that transition is everybody's responsibilities, not just those with a particular title or in any one system? Let us rely on and not disregard the federal funding for special education, the special education entitlement for ages 18 to 21. In our advocacy and with our responsibilities, can we make the 18 to 21 educational entitlement years opportunities to recognize the yearnings that we all have for independence, for differentiating ourselves, for our families, for love, romance, connection, and activity? Let's deepen the connections and responsiveness for schools to continue to support people into 21 as they want to be supported and leaning toward meaningful adult life. As Olmsted establishes these rights, as does IDEA, that's essential, but it is on our collective collaboration that we now turn to, that we can make rights real in the lives of the people we love and for whom we work. Thank you so much for the opportunity to start off. And I now turn to our colleagues, my colleague, Dr. Josephine Shanuda in the Department of Health. Josephine.
Thank you, everyone. I'm here to share with you transition planning from Part C, or early intervention, to Part B in preschool. So as Deborah mentioned, that our program is actually funded by a federal program and a law, the IDEA. And for us, early intervention is the first program in a child's life. We serve children between the ages of 0 to 3. And our program is called the New Jersey Early Intervention System. Part B, the preschool program, is the program that is next up after early intervention and where children transition to. So just to briefly, what are the differences between Part C and Part B, and what looks like a smooth transition from early intervention to preschool? So for Part C, the lead agency is housed at the Department of Health. And again, we serve children, infants, and toddlers. It's about 35,000 families annually that we serve. And the children are eligible for delays and disabilities. And these are usually 5 designated areas that we have. And when the child is referred, we're mandated by law to have 45 days to complete a written plan of service. And this plan is called Individualized Family Service Plan. And even though this is the initial plan for the child, transition steps are discussed with the parents at the initial IFSP meeting. For services in early intervention, they occur in natural environments. These are usually at home or in child daycare centers. This is in contrast with Part B, and I'm sure Dr. Murray, who's next, will talk about it a little bit more. But for Part B, when the child transitions, we're looking at children 3 to 5. The eligibility is a little bit different, and their plan is more focused, more child focused. So we're family focused, and we're trying to equip families with the support and resources that they need so that they can transition from Part C to Part B. Next. So the purpose of early intervention is not just to provide services to the child. It is a critical time period where we have rapid brain growth, that we can definitely leverage that time to have the child achieve their maximum potential. But early intervention also aims to equip families with the necessary skills and knowledge to improve their child's progress and development. Next. So the main goals are to have a child find or public awareness. So as I said, we serve 35,000 families across the state, but the question remains, does every family that requires service in early intervention, are they seen by early intervention? The next 2 goals focus on enhancing the capacity of families and providing family-centered approach. And finally, as the child exits early intervention program, we support the families to transition to the next program. Next. How we deliver services through early intervention. We have 4 regional centers across the state. Those provide family resources. We have family support coordinators that provide information to families. We have the service delivery through 49 provider agencies. These provide services that I'll talk about soon. And the transition and the progress in who tracks the journey of the child through early intervention is really done at the county level through service coordination. So the steps in early intervention start with referral, then evaluation, then meeting with the family to establish a plan that has their priorities, their concerns, and their resources, implementing that program, and then transitioning the child as they exit the early intervention program. Throughout this process, especially starting with the initial IFSP, the plan, the service coordinator is always speaking to the family, is always giving them the resources and the steps for the transition as their child exit the early intervention program. So what's in the family service plan? It is a written plan by an interdisciplinary team. It does evaluate the child's current level of development, and it addresses the strengths and challenges of the child, and it identifies the family concern, priorities, and resources. Next. And the services that are provided include service coordination, physical therapy, family training, speech therapy. Every child receives service coordination, but different children with different needs receive different services. The right of the parent is that as they exit early intervention, they have the right to a transition plan. They have the right for our service coordinators to provide notification to the local school district that the child may be potentially eligible. They also have the right for referral, not just for the local school district, but other community programs, and also to hold a transition conference. So why are children transitioning beyond early intervention? So the reason for transition is usually when the child turns 3 and they're exiting the program. But in some cases, some children no longer meet the eligibility. They have made significant progress that they no longer need to be in early intervention. Of course, parent can withdraw or a family can move in within the state or another state. So where does the child transition to after early intervention? They can go to early childhood programs, Head Start, even transition to home and other community activities. And the majority of our children do go on to preschool, special education, and related services. Transition planning, the key person in our group is the service coordinator. They work with the family to develop the transition plan and the next steps. The timeline is usually between the ages of 2 years, 3 months, and 2 years, 9 months. That's when the transition plan is developed. And at 2 years, 9 months, the transition plan for Part B is established and initiated. And by 2 years, 11 months, the evaluation is completed by Part B and the child exits the program. So in that 90 days before the child turns 3, 2 things are happening. One, a referral from early intervention to Part B with the child's information to their local school district, and an evaluation that's conducted by Part B. The eligibility is determined, and at that point, a service coordinator can be part of the IEP meeting. Next step. There's a lot of moving part for transitions, but our service coordinator works with the family through their EI journey to ensure that they have all of the necessary information, all of the resources, as well as our regional centers, which I put in there, the websites for them that actually provide additional resources, and our family support coordinators work with families for any questions that they may have. So thank you very much. And I want to pass it over to Dr. Murray.
Thanks, Josephine. That was a tough act to follow. I'm Kim Murray, and I am the Director of the Office of Special Education at the New Jersey Department of Education. And I often start all of my meetings with a quote. And I love this one, because one of the foundational beliefs we have in the Office of Special Education is equity. We believe that everything we do flows from equity, and we define that very simply. It's giving kids what they need when they need it, whether they are 3 and just coming to us from early intervention, or they're 21 and they are leaving us to go to the adult, the world of adults. So we want to make sure everyone has what they need. So when we talk about special education and related services, there really are 2 pieces of the regulations that drive what we do. First is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. This is the federal legislation that ensures students with disabilities receive a public education, a free, appropriate public education. And NJAC 6A14 are the state regulations that include all of the requirements of the IDEA. And some of the most important provisions in those regulations are developing an individualized education program, placement of students with disabilities in the least restrictive environment, and transition planning. So when we talk about transition planning in New Jersey, that planning is required to begin with the IEP where a student will turn 14. But it can occur earlier if that's appropriate. And oftentimes it is appropriate. We need to be having those conversations. The transition requirements include making sure the student is invited to the IEP meeting. And then documenting discussions of a student's post-secondary aspirations, which we know and should, if my own children are any indication, we're going to change a dozen times before they leave school. But we want to know, what are you interested in? What are the courses of study you're going to be taking? Do you need linkages to other agencies? Who needs to provide you support? What are your areas of strength? What are the things you prefer to do? And who is going to be that person in the school district that is going to connect all of those dots and pull all the pieces together? At age 16, there are additional requirements that come into play. One is that the student needs to be administered an age-appropriate transition assessment. And also that there is a discussion around the transfer of rights. When a student reaches age 18, a lot of the rights around IEP development come to the student, and we have discussions about that early and often. We at the Department of Ed and the Office of Special Education, we have some great resources to share with our community partners. First is the Office of Special Ed Transition Toolkit. This is sort of a one-stop shop for the age 14 and age 16 transition requirements. It's a comprehensive guide to help students and families learn more about transition planning. And we have partnered with the Boggs Center at Rutgers University to provide support and training around community-based instruction and person-centered approaches to school and transition. Both are vital to having a robust discussion around transition planning and center the student in those conversations where they should be. You can find all of these resources and more on our website. And finally, I wanted to share just a little bit about something that we are so proud of at the Office of Special Education. We received an $8.6 million grant from the U.S. Department of Education around transition, and it is called Collaborations in Transition NJ, or CIT NJ. We have three big goals with this grant. First, we are creating a transition hub website. This will be a one-stop shop that will have family-friendly and easily accessible information about all of the transition planning across all of the state agencies. So you won't have to go to all of the different agencies to find information. It will be in one place. Another component of the grant is that we are partnering with our sister agencies and the statewide parent advocacy network, among others, to create some comprehensive targeted training in 3 school districts. And this is a pilot, but we are working with school districts who have particular needs around transition. And the hope is that providing this collaborative, comprehensive approach, we can then take those training materials and what we've learned and scale it up statewide. And finally, we are lucky to have Bill Freeman and Joanne Johnson in the Office of Special Education, 2 amazing transition specialists who can answer any of your questions. But we know that there is a need for information, so we are hiring a 3rd transition specialist to just be able to find more, provide more resources and guidance to the community. And I am happy to hand it over to Melinda at the New Jersey Department of Children and Families.
Thanks, Kim. Hello, everyone. I am Melinda Carnassau. I'm the Deputy Director of Operations at the Children's System of Care within the New Jersey Department of Children and Families. I'm also joined today by our Assistant Director, Alex Encarnacion. The Children's System of Care, better known as CSOC, serves youth up to age 21 with emotional and behavioral health care diagnoses, intellectual and developmental disabilities, and/or substance use disorders. Families can access our services statewide by calling our contracted system administrator, or CSA, Perform Care. Next slide. The Department of Children and Families, or DCF, is devoted exclusively to serving and supporting at-risk children and families. We're often asked to clarify the roles and relationship between CSOC and the Division of Child Protection and Permanency, or DCP&P, who is our sister division, as well as the roles of partners within our system. So we've created this graphic to help support this discussion. DCP&P is the Child Protection and Welfare Agency within DCF. Its mission is to ensure the safety, permanency, and well-being of children and to support families. CSOC serves youth with emotional and behavioral health care challenges and their families, youth with developmental and intellectual disabilities and their families, and youth with substance use challenges and their families through coordinated care, treatment, and intervention, whether or not they're involved with DCP&P. In fact, most children engaged with CSOC have no involvement with CP&P. CSOC is committed to service provision based on the youth and family needs in a family-centered, community-based environment. CSOC encompasses state staff charged with management and oversight of the administrative, clinical, and support services provided by agencies that are contracted with DCF. DCF contracts with our CSA Perform Care to provide access to publicly funded services through CSOC for youth up to age 21. As the CSA, Perform Care is the single point of access to an array of services for youth and families throughout New Jersey. Next slide. Our CSA Perform Care is how families can access services provided by the care management organizations, or CMOs, Mobile Response and Stabilization Services, or MRSS, and Family Support Organizations, or FSOs. Our CSA is also the access point to have a youth's DD eligibility determined, which then allows that child to access Family Support Services, or FSS, intensive in-home and out-of-home treatment services. Next slide. Our CSA Perform Care is available to families 24/7, 365 days a year. When a youth or family calls, a care coordinator will walk the family through the process. Calls will be triaged to assess the immediacy of need, authorize services based on level of urgency, and provide information and referral. The CSOC service array is the network of contracted providers serving the youth and families of New Jersey, both in their communities and then when the need arises in out-of-home settings. Building a community network of supports allows for the opportunity to provide earlier intervention and coordinated community-based care driven by family need. Mobile Response and Stabilization Service is CSOC's timely, face-to-face, community-based response component that's designed to provide response within 1 hour. Mobile Response aims to stabilize the youth and family system, prevent unnecessary intervention and system involvement, and keep youth safe at home and in the community whenever possible. Mobile Response can stay involved for up to 8 weeks should a youth and family's needs indicate continued involvement. New Jersey has 15 mobile response programs across 21 counties, which allows for timely and flexible response. Care management organizations are CSOC's lead system partner, providing comprehensive care coordination and planning for youth with moderate and complex needs and their families. The CMO collaborates with families to develop and facilitate child-family teams, or CFTs, that drive care planning to meet the youth and families' needs. CMOs aim to maintain youth in the community for treatment whenever possible. Out-of-home treatment only becomes a consideration when there are no in-community options to meet a youth's needs. Family support organizations are CSOC's family and youth peer support leader. They provide peer support services to families of youth with emotional, behavioral, developmental, and/or substance use challenges. FSO peer partners have lived experience supporting their own youth and allowing caregivers the benefit of guidance and support from that perspective through an array of services. Next slide. Youth with developmental disability needs can access the same services as any youth, including mobile response and stabilization services, care management organizations, and family support organizations. However, youth deemed DD eligible also have access to services designed specifically for their needs. These functional services include family support services and intensive in-home services. Alex is now going to walk us through these functional services in some detail, including eligibility and access. Alex?
Thank you, Melinda. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'll try to be quick. All right, so to be eligible to receive CSOC's DD services or functional services, as Melinda mentioned, the youth's parent or legal guardian must apply for developmental disability eligibility through Perform Care if the youth is under 18 years old, or through the Division of Developmental Disabilities, DDD, if the youth is 18 to 21 years old. Although youths aged 18 to 20 must apply for DD eligibility through DDD, they are still eligible for CSOC services until they turn 21. DDD is responsible for providing services after the age of 21. So to be considered for DD eligibility, the youth must have a developmental disability diagnosis from a licensed clinician through an evaluation process. For youth under 18, applications along with supporting documentation can be submitted online via Perform Care's family portal found on the Perform Care website. Families can also print out the application and send the information by mail, but it is highly recommended that the application be completed online as this will expedite the process. And for individuals over 18, applications, instructions, and materials can be found on the DDD website. Next slide. So one set of functional services is Family Support Services, or FSS. FSS are designed to strengthen and promote families that provide care at home for a child or young adult. To be eligible for FSS, the youth must be determined IDD eligible and must live in the community either with a family member or a resource family. Please note the application for Family Support Services is different from the DD eligibility application. At this stage, the youth has already been deemed DD eligible, and all the family has to do is work with Perform Care's care coordinator over the phone. The care coordinator will work with the caregiver to determine which services they are interested in and which are appropriate. The telephonic application takes approximately 20 minutes to complete. Next slide. So Family Support Services is really an umbrella term. The services range from educational advocacy, camp, assistive technology, and respite, which we will discuss on the next slide. Educational advocacy is a service provided to DD eligible youth and their families who need in-depth help with education-related needs. For example, support with IEP meetings, transition planning at school, communication devices, etc. Next is camp, and CSOC provides financial support towards summer camp tuition for DD eligible youth to attend camp services with a CSOC contracted camp. CSOC camp funding covers traditional day camp, alternative recreational sessions, and overnight camp. Funding for one-to-one aid support services is also available. Then there's assistive technology. Assistive technology is designed to increase the functional skills of a youth with a developmental disability and enhance their ability to navigate their environment. There are 3 ways we assist. Assistive devices, which is an item or piece of equipment, such as travel chairs or walkers. Vehicle modifications, this includes assessments, adaptations, or alterations to an automobile or van that is the youth's primary means of transportation. And this can include motorized lifts or ramps, and environmental modifications like widening doorways in a house, installing ramps, grab bars, etc. For all assistive technology, we provide up to $15,000 within a 3-year cycle. Next slide. Lastly, there's respite. Respite, meaning a break or relief, is intended to provide temporary relief for the primary caregiver from the demands of caring for an individual with disabilities. This service is intended to provide care and supervision to the child either in their own home or outside their primary residence. There are 5 types of respite, from in-home service like self-hired or agency-hired respite to facility-based like an agency after-school program or weekend respite where the youth would go to a provider site for a few hours. I encourage everyone to go to the Perform Care website for more information on all the FSS services, requirements, and applications. Next slide. So the other type of specialized or functional services offered to youth with DD are intensive in-home or IIH services. These services are categorized into 3 types: IIH behavioral, IIH clinical and therapeutic, and individual support services. Behavioral services focus on decreasing challenging behaviors and improving the youth's self-regulating skills, communication skills, and adaptive skills. The intervention utilizes applied behavior analysis therapy, and the clinician will also work with the parent to support the behavior plan. Clinical and therapeutic services focus on the restoration of a youth's functional level after an acute episode or decline in functioning related to mental illness or a significant life stressor. The intervention focuses on the youth and family and provides cognitive and behavioral strategies to enable youth to function at his or her optimal level. And individual support services. They address challenging behavior and skill development for basic activities of daily living, ADLs. These include self-care tasks or skills needed to live independently in the community. This service teaches skills directly to the youth and trains the parents in implementation of the individual support plan. Similar to IIH behavioral, ISS is based on principles of positive behavior support and relies heavily on an instructional approach. But the services are lower intensity to teach functional skills, not to address dangerous behaviors to self or others. Next slide. Okay, so wrapping up, I'd like to touch upon the transition from CSOC to DDD. So because the transitioning process can take several months, we encourage families to begin the process early, typically around the age of 16. However, families should contact DDD to receive additional guidance on expected timeframes, as this could be on a youth-specific basis. A few things a youth needs to transition are adult eligibility and adult Medicaid. Eligibility, they would apply and obtain through DDD. Adult Medicaid, the easiest way to obtain this is by applying for SSI. Anyone approved for SSI is automatically Medicaid eligible. Overall, CSOC works closely with DDD to ensure continuity of care. This includes sharing of necessary documentation and assessments. For youth and out-of-home placement, roundtable conferencing is utilized, meaning CMO care managers meet with DDD regional staff on a monthly basis for planning the transition of youth and out-of-home from CSOC to DDD. For non-out-of-home youth, the standardization of a monthly data sharing process is being developed. CSOC is actively working with Perform Care IT and DDD IT on a transfer protocol for the sharing of electronic records and information, which is still currently done by a live person from CSOC who disseminates the information. Next slide. You can find more information on all the topics discussed at the Children's System of Care website or Perform Care's website, both listed. And if there are any questions, please feel free to send them to our director's mailbox at csoc.director@dcf.nj.gov. Thank you everyone for your time, and I'll now pass the presentation over to the New Jersey Department of Human Services Division of Developmental Disabilities.
Thank you so much. So good afternoon. Thank you so much for having us today. My name is Nkechi Okoli, and I'm the statewide director for the Transition to Adult Life and Employment units at the division. And I'm accompanied today with our Assistant Commissioner, Jonathan C. Freed, who's here to join us. So today I'll just kind of go through a little bit of information about what DDD has to offer. One of the things that we like to always start off with is really sharing our mission. And our mission is really to ensure the opportunity for individuals with developmental disabilities to receive quality services and supports, participate meaningfully in their community, and exercise their right to make choices. So a lot of the work that we do and what we'll talk about as we move forward through today's presentation is really to ensure that people have access to the information and they really can make the choices that are best for them as they choose to execute their best life. So who does DDD serve? In a nutshell, we offer services to those who have an intellectual or developmental disability that began prior to the age of 22 and is expected to be lifelong. We primarily offer services to people 21 or older. They have to be a legal U.S. citizen and a resident of New Jersey, and they must not only obtain but maintain Medicaid. They lastly need to meet our functional criteria for a developmental disability. What you see before you is a list of all the services that we have available in our service system. You'll see that we have a range of services from occupational therapy, speech and language and hearing therapy, to things such as goods and services where you can utilize your budget, and we'll talk more about what that looks like in a second, but you can utilize your budget to identify services that you may desire to do in the community and be able to pay for that. We have services within our service system that you can see are available to people either on the supports program or our community care program. Generally, anyone who's interested in accessing services and has been determined eligible to access our services would be coming into most likely our supports program. However, those who meet a higher level of need may also look to apply to be reviewed for the community care program as well. For those who are looking to transition and go through the process of being determined eligible for our service system, what you will find is that we have this one pager that you'll be able to look at. Is available on our website that really talks about the 4 steps to go through the process of eligibility. So when you go through this process, you'll be able to go through each one of the steps. And as you've completed those steps, know that you have been determined eligible for DDD services and what are the next things that you should be doing. The 4 steps are comprised of starting off with applying for Medicaid and obtaining adult Medicaid. Step 2 is completing the DDD short or full application. Completing the New Jersey Comprehensive Assessment Tool, which is the assessment tool that determines the budget that you'll have in order to access services through our service system. And then step 4 is completing what's called the Support Coordination Agency Selection Form. A support coordinator is someone who is going to help you manage your budget and be able to learn more about what services are available in our service system. So once you've gone through step 1, 2, and 3, you'll be determined eligible for our services. And then you would go on to do step 4, which is complete the form to identify which support coordination agency you would like to work with. We have a team that is spread out throughout the state of New Jersey, who is able to provide information about the transition process to individuals and families through the school system, as well as through events that we attend to be able to ensure that you have the information that you need as you're transitioning to the adult service system. One of the things that we also have available is that if you do contact our main line, which is the number you see before you, you'll be able to press number 2 and you'll get to the transition unit. In that, you'll be able to ask any questions that you may have about the transition process and have someone to be able to support you through that as you're starting to seek information about that process. One of the things that we do is that we offer 3 main presentations. The first presentation is navigating the DDD service system, and that presentation is focused on helping people understand what the process looks like to transition into the adult service system. So as I mentioned already, we have the 4 steps to transition into our adult service system, and then also what to expect once you actually are in our service system and how to best navigate it along the way. We have another presentation called Preparing for a Brighter Future, the firsthand experience of a person with a disability. And that is one of our team members who also is utilizing services, who shares a lot of resources and information for those who are going through the process of transitioning and may need some resources and information as they not only look to access services as an adult, but also seek possible employment in the future. As you may or may not know, New Jersey is an employment first state. So we believe that everyone has the right and the ability to work as soon as they have chosen to do so. And so with that being said, we share a lot of resources and information about that as well. And then lastly is our employment presentation that does talk about our Employment First initiative, as well as what are the resources that are available for you both through DDD, but also through our sister state agency, the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services, who will be presenting following me. We also provide the opportunity to have one-on-one opportunities to talk to us and ask the questions that you may have around your transition process. Now, generally, we do talk about starting the conversation as early as you would like. Some people are starting to have these conversations even when they're in middle school. For many, it's through high school that they're starting to just ask questions and make sure that they understand what the transition process looks like and how can they best prepare for it for the future. So we have opportunities where we connect with the schools throughout the state of New Jersey to make sure that we are a resource and that you can set up a 20-minute conference with one of us to be able to answer questions that you may have. If your school is not already presenting that as an opportunity for you, you're more than welcome to call our number and we will set up a quick call to have this conversation with you moving forward. If you would like to meet us at any of the events throughout the state, we make a very diligent effort to ensure that we are attending events across the state to make sure that you are able to access us and gain information from the division. So you can go to our website and see where we're going to be next and join us at one of the events that we'll be at. And one of the greatest things that we have to offer that a lot of our families have found as a really great resource is our new Transition Thursdays. So we offer a series of webinars that are available to individuals and families. Moving forward will be on a monthly basis. There'll be 2 events happening every month. And then on a quarterly basis, we're going to have our welcome sessions. Go to the next slide. So our quarterly welcome sessions are an opportunity for you to learn about exactly what you should be thinking about, how should you prepare, and what should you be considering as you're going through the transition process coming into our service system. So the quarterly sessions that we have on the first Thursday of the quarter is a shorter session that is an hour long that gives you a quick synopsis of what DD has to offer. What's great about our session that happens at the end of the month, so the 4th Thursday of that quarter, it talks a lot about specific areas of the division that you may want more information about. So if you want to have more information specifically about intake, more information specifically about support coordination, maybe you're interested in self-directing your services, or maybe you're interested in understanding employment a little bit better. You get the opportunity to actually be in a one-on-one session to ask questions and learn more about that particular topic as you move forward. On a monthly basis, we have 2 events, as I mentioned. So on a regular, we'll continue to have a intake and transition presentation that's going to happen on the 2nd Thursday of every month. So even if you've come to one of the sessions and you weren't sure if you got all the information you needed, you're more than welcome to attend again in the future and get more information from there. We also are going to have rotating topics that happen on the 3rd Thursday of the month, where you can learn more about different topics that are going to support you in your pursuit of a good life as an adult, that are going to range from services and information that DED has to offer, but also other state agencies will also be presenting during that time as well. The next quarterly sessions that we have available are going to be happening on July 3rd, which is next week, Wednesday, and also July 25th, which is going to be the 4th Thursday of July from 6 to 7:30. These are the QR codes for you if you would like to go ahead and register for them, and it'll be in the slide deck that you'll be receiving from today's presentation. If you would like to continue to stay up to date with what we are doing and how you can get this information on a regular basis, please join our listserv. You can do so with the QR code before you, or you can go to our website and decide to join our listserv there. And then lastly, we always encourage that you join our larger listserv for communication from the division as a whole. We always say that we're always trying to improve and refine the services that we have available and make sure that you have the information you need in order to continue to stay abreast as to what's going on with the division. So please join our listserv for that. and or go to our website for it as well. And so, as I mentioned, we do have offices throughout the state, so you can feel free to go ahead and contact any one of our offices if you do have any questions. And like I said, you can use our 1-800 number and reach out to our team, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. The next few slides are just informational slides that will just give you more information about what the division has to offer. I know we went through a lot of information in a synopsis, but I will say is that a lot of the information that we shared today is also going to be able to be found in our supports program and our community care program manuals, as well as our quick guide, and all can be found on our website. I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and this is John Seaford from DDD, and thank you, NKG, for the review. And we're moving on to our partners at the Division of Vocational and Rehabilitation Services.
Hi, good evening. My name is Renee Cartizolo. I am a program planning and development specialist with the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, part of the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. I am here today along with all of these wonderful partners that we work very closely with to discuss the services of DVRS. The mission of New Jersey DVRS is to enable individuals with disabilities to achieve an employment outcome consistent with their strengths, priorities, needs, abilities, and capabilities. What is DVRS? The Division of Voc Rehab is part of the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. So because we're part of the Department of Labor, our goal is employment. DVRS helps individuals with disabilities prepare for, obtain, and maintain competitive employment. We are working with individuals to obtain career pathways. So not just finding a job, but finding a fulfilling career through career pathways. The federal level DVRS is monitored by the Department of Education through the Rehabilitation Services Administration, or RSA, and our professional staff are highly trained in the field of vocational rehabilitation. Next slide. DVR is a comprehensive workforce development program serving people with disabilities and the employer community. DVRS staff are disability employment experts and provide a full array of work-based learning opportunities and employment-related services to assist people with disabilities in the support of their chosen career pathway. When we're talking about transition services, we're talking about a wide variety of individuals. Our services don't only serve individuals that are school age or transitioning from school to work, but we work with individuals that are adults, 18 and older. We work with out-of-school youth, so ages 16 to 24. If someone hasn't quite completed their high school diploma and are no longer attending school, they can receive out-of-school youth services. If someone has achieved their diploma and are still looking for some of those basic youth services to build that foundation for employment and are under the age 24, they can still receive those out-of-youth school services. We also serve high school students starting the year that they turn 14 with pre-employment transition services. DVRS promotes and advocates for inclusive employment and is committed to creating and supporting career pathways for DVRS consumers. DVRS is part of a nationwide federal regulation to provide vocational rehabilitation services, and there's a voc rehab agency in each state. How do you access DVR services? Let's talk about the steps in the vocational rehabilitation process. The initial request for DVR services starts with the referral. Individuals of an adult age may refer themselves to DVR. Minors or others under guardianship may be referred by their parents or guardians. Referrals can come from a variety of sources, such as hospitals, service providers, state or county agencies. Anyone that feels that someone could benefit from voc rehab services can refer an individual to our agency. We have a confidential referral form that can be used to submit a referral, or it can be taken over the phone. So if you're interested in calling the office directly, on the last slide, there's contact information for each of the local offices. Don't hesitate to call them and ask to make a referral with your local office. Or you can get the referral form by clicking the DVR's confidential referral form link once you receive the slide deck. And there is also a slide later on that shows how to access our website and highlights where that referral information can be obtained there as well. Once we receive a referral form, you are contacted by a counselor that you're assigned to, and you start the application process. It's very interesting that our services and our application and referral form are some of the easiest application forms when you're talking about government referrals and applications. The referral form and application form do look quite similar. So if you're asked to fill out another form that you're like, I already filled this out, it's usually the application form. It's a little bit shorter, but that requires a signature at the end of the page. And this is needed to pursue DVR services when you're applying for voc rehab services, for adult services. When you come in for the initial meeting, you'll be having an interview with the counselor who's going to ask questions related to your capabilities, your diagnosis, how it impacts your ability to work, what your vocational goals are, and your expectations for DVR. You'll need to bring proof of identification if you're looking to obtain an adult VR case, including a Social Security card and Social Security number, and verification of income benefits such as SSI or SSDI. When you're when you're being referred for a pre-ETS case, the eligibility requirements are not as strict. However, if you move from a pre-ETS case to a vocational rehabilitation case or an adult case type, we do need this documentation to move you from those case types. Continuing on with what to bring to the survey interview, you need to bring your personal identification and contact information. Please bring any evaluations that will help us determine eligibility and provide some foundational information for the counselor, so that they understand how your diagnosis impacts your ability to work and how they can best help you. In the case of high school students or recent graduates, the most recent IEP, psychological, social, and learning assessments, and other pertinent school documentation also help provide that foundational information for the counselor. And if you have any results from career interest testing, that can be very helpful as well. Once you bring that documentation, the counselor will review it to make you eligible for DVRS services. So you must have some kind of a documented physical, cognitive, or mental, emotional impairment that poses a substantial barrier to employment. And it requires vocational rehabilitation services in order to prepare for, secure, maintain, or regain employment. Once you've been determined eligible for DVR services, you and your counselor will work together to develop an individual plan for employment. So this is a written agreement between the consumer and the counselor on how you'll proceed forth with DVR services to help you maintain and obtain and maintain employment. DVR has a lot of services that they can provide, more services than I can go over in this presentation, but all services with DVR are individualized based on the individual's needs to return to employment. They can keep in mind the consumer's vocational goal, and their work history, skill levels, and barriers related to their disability and employment. Many services are no cost to the consumer, such as diagnostics, vocational counseling and guidance. But some others are based on a financial needs assessment. Here are some examples of the specific services that DVR can provide. Next slide, thank you. We also provide supported employment and specialized services. Then once someone has found and maintained an employment, that meets their career pathway and they've maintained that employment for a minimum of 90 days, we go through something as that we call a successful rehabilitation or case closure. This means the specific services provided through DVRS have ended and the individual looking for employment has stabilized in employment and no longer need the DVRS services. However, a consumer may reapply to DVRS at any time in the future if the job situation changes or if their career pathway needs change as well. Pre-employment transition services are available to all students with disabilities in need of VR services, regardless of whether they've applied for VR services. They may begin as early as 14 and are considered to be the shared responsibility between the local school district and DVRS. As I mentioned before, this is a screenshot of our website. So if you see on the right-hand side, there's an area that says make a referral. You can, and there it says complete the online referral form or pre-ETS student referral form. And you can also find a lot more information about our services through this website as well. This is our central office. We are located in Trenton at 1 John Fitch Plaza in the Department of Labor and Workforce Development building. And this, as I mentioned, is a list of all of the local offices within the state that you, the contact information there is there as well, that you can call them and submit your referral directly online. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it back, I believe, to Paul.
Great, thank you so much. So there you have it. A lot of information about a lot of resources available to you and your families. Again, this wasn't an exhaustive conversation about all of the transition issues that you need to consider, but we hope it was a good, useful overview of some of the key topics and resources. As noted, we will be housing today's webinar and the presentations on our Ombudsman Office website in the coming days. Please use them, please share them, and please let us know if you have any questions or concerns. Our doors are always open. And so with that, let me thank my colleagues for their presentations today. And let me thank all of you, the individuals and families we serve, for your participation. Thank you very much.